So, quite often, the hardest thing to do with your outcome is actually to get started on it. And that means that you need to write your introduction. Your introduction should be um, suitable for the type of format that you're going to use for your outcome. It'll have some similar information in it, regardless of whether you're writing a report, whether you're doing a magazine article, whether you're doing like a newsletter, whether you are doing a PowerPoint, or whether you're doing a TED talk. All of your information that goes into that introductory part of your work is going to have a couple of things in common to them. So you just need to adapt what is being said for here for the introduction to the format that you're going to be presenting in. Okay, so what I've done here on my public drive, on the school drive, there is a outcome folder, and within that there's a Word document called Writing the Outcome Introduction, a Guide. So that's this document here. Go have a look at this one, and it will help you to start brainstorming and to start developing your own introduction. Okay, so first things first, how does a good book or an interesting article start? Usually with a great introduction. Everyone wants to have a great introduction. It's going to hook your reader in, get them interested in your topic, tell them a little bit about what they're going to be reading and what it is you're going to be explaining to them. Okay, so how do you make your introduction great? Authors have a range of techniques that they use, and they could include things like using a memorable quote. They might have a personal anecdote that they talk about. There might be a particular statistic or a fact or a figure or something that's going to make people go, wow. Okay, use that piece of information. There might be a particularly well thought out point of interest about your topic that you think that's the thing that's going to hook someone. Use that as your introduction. Okay. Now, to hook your reader in, you're only going to be doing a couple of sentences. The introduction itself, you've probably only got around 200 words or so for. You don't want to make it really wordy because you need those words later on to be able to present all of your information. So, when you think about how you're going to hook your reader, you need to explain to your reader what it is they're going to be reading about. And this means that you need to state your question as it currently stands as well. Okay? So, for example, here's a started introduction to my shark culling topic. The odds of getting attacked and killed by a shark are 1 in 3,748,000. So I'm using a statistic, an interesting statistic. Okay, I've referenced it because obviously that's not something that I know personally. It's not common knowledge. I've had to get that information from somewhere, so I've referenced it. However, if you're living in Australia at the moment, you would be forgiven for thinking that the chances are much higher. This is largely because of the current media attention on shark attacks as a result of the recent attack off the coast of Western Australia. And again, I've provided some reference information for that. In order to examine the debate around shark culling, this paper will attempt to answer the question, should governments cull sharks as a possible public safety measure? And notice that I have bolded that and I've got that within my quotation marks as well. I've used 355 words there. So, characters. So that's quite wordy. I don't want to make that much bigger because I don't want to use too much else within my introduction. All right, so that's my very first paragraph. Okay, now I've given some space on this sheet here for you to have a go at that yourself if you would like to. The next thing that you need to do from your introduction is to give your readers a bit of a signpost as to where this is going to go. They know what your topic is. You've given them, that original statistic, that quote, whatever it happens to be, but now you need to break it down for them. So what are they actually going to be reading about or learning about through your piece of work? All right. So the introduction becomes the signpost for the rest of the outcome. What is going to be covered, and maybe a very brief description of the how and the what. So this is where you will detail those 2 to 4 key findings or focus questions, whatever you want to call them, that you'll be covering with a very brief description of what and how it's going to be presented. So, for example, using my shark culling technique example again, my next paragraph would look something like, in order to do this, the topic of shark culling has been broken down into 4 key questions. The first of these involves looking at how the state government of Western Australia is tackling the problem of shark attacks through a shark culling program. Examining this area will involve using a range of archival research from mainstream media and the results from an author-conducted survey. So I've told them this is the information that you're going to be presenting, and these are the types of information that I'm basing this upon. I've left this for you to be able to fill in basically. The second area to be looked at is blah, blah, blah. Finally, I will be covering blah, blah, blah. By doing this, I believe it is possible to show that for a great variety of reasons, it's not our government's responsibility to cull sharks in order to keep the general public safe. So I've actually stated what my finding, my final outcome, is going to be within my introduction, so that people reading this are already aware that the research that I have discovered leads me to this conclusion, and they're going to be looking for evidence of that within the outcome while they are reading or moderating my work. Okay, so now what are the areas that you've organised for your outcome? This is where you use your key findings organiser sheets and you figure out what is the focus of the material that's going into the answers for this section. And there's a table underneath for you to think about. Think about the order of these areas. Are they in a logical sequence? Does one flow into the next? Do you possibly need to reorder them? And again, I've set up the worksheet for you there to be able to area 1, area 2, area 3, 4, etc. to help you plan your introduction to your outcome. Now, as I stated, not everyone's going to be writing a report or a written response for their outcome. Some of you are going to be doing a how-to film. Some of you are going to be doing a newspaper article. Some of you are going to be doing a TED talk. Some of you might want to do an interpretive dance. But regardless of the format that you choose for your outcome, you are still going to need to have some of those features within an introductory type component within your outcome. People need to be signposted as to what that is they're going to be learning about. Okay, so take on board some of that, work out how it's going to work and fit and look for your outcome. Good luck.